While a lot of the meetings you'll attend are what you might call standard meetings, there are also a number of special meeting types that you may be called upon to attend or even chair or facilitate. So in this video, I want to take you through some tips about how to run effective meetings of 4 particular types. In this video, I'm going to look at morning stand-ups or roll call meetings, working group type meetings, creative thinking or brainstorming meetings, and decision-making meetings. And I'll give you my tips for how to lead those meetings and make them a success. Let's start with morning stand-ups or roll call meetings, which are typically all-hands meetings. They involve everyone in the team. They're fast-paced. They need to be over quickly, often within 15 minutes, and they cover some basic information. We often do them standing up rather than sitting down to keep them fast-paced and stop people getting comfortable. That's why they're called morning stand-ups. And also, we expect people to pass the talking stick, the baton, rapidly from one person to another. And as a result, to keep it well structured and rapid, we ask people only to speak about a small number of particular things, and quite often there is a formulaic set of questions for everyone to answer. For you as the facilitator or chair of these meetings, it's therefore valuable to think in advance about what are the right questions to ask and to hone those down to the smallest number of powerful questions. I'm going to suggest 4 questions that can be very useful. The first 3 of them come from Agile and Scrum morning stand-up meetings. The first question is, what did you do yesterday that helped us move towards achieving our goal? Question 2, what will you do today to help us move towards achieving our goal? Question 3, what could get in your way today to block you from achieving what you need to achieve to help us achieving our goal? And a 4th question that I particularly like is, what did you learn yesterday that could be helpful to the people in this room? After the last speaker has spoken, signpost the ending. And a lot of roll call type meetings get a catchphrase that the facilitator uses. Something like, hey, let's be careful, put safety first. Or, hey, let's crush it today. These kinds of catchphrases may sound corny coming out of my mouth on this video, but in the right context and well chosen, they can become a rallying cry, something familiar that signs off the meeting and leaves people able to move on to their day's tasks, feeling confident and enthusiastic and knowing what their priority is. The second special meeting type is what I call a working group style of meeting, where you bring a group of people together to work a problem. Typically, these are experienced senior people who have the ability to control the resources that you need to get a problem solved. If you've got a regular working group meeting, you may have a very slim standing agenda, but for me, what I like to do is, as people come in and are getting themselves a coffee, then from each person, take a note of what concerns them, what they want to discuss at the meeting, and put it onto a whiteboard or a flip chart. Then, when people are seated, go around the room getting a sense of what everybody's priorities are. This stage of the meeting has a very simple outcome: a prioritization sequence for all of the issues that anyone has raised. Next, tackle the issues in the order of priority. Tackle the first issue as quickly and efficiently as you can, but keep working at it until you have a resolution. Once you do have a resolution, document the actions agreed, allocate responsibilities, and write that up onto the board. and then move on to the next issue and work that issue in the same way and keep going. Keep going until about 5 to 10 minutes before the scheduled closure of the meeting. It's important for these working group type meetings to keep to schedule. In the last 5 to 10 minutes, go through all of the items that you haven't had a chance to discuss because they haven't been of the highest priority. And for each item, allocate responsibility to one person in the room to work that problem, to get people together and to deal with it outside of the room. If someone has an idea about how to tackle it, document that as well. Then close the meeting by reviewing and confirming all the actions you've documented on the board. And before you leave, take a photograph of that board and send that photograph to everyone in the room so that everyone has a simple record of that working group meeting. Don't worry about minutes, don't worry about the formalities, because this is a working group meeting of senior people who are committed to resolving issues. The third style of meeting is an ideas generation type of meeting, sometimes called brainstorming, although strictly speaking, brainstorming is one method for generating ideas, and it's a method that doesn't work that well. It's not that great. We can do better. So I'm going to take you through a structure for an ideas generating meeting, which uses some of the principles of brainstorming, but gets over many of the problems. And at the start of the meeting, pose the problem. And pose it in a positive sense, how to achieve this, how to get that outcome, and choose a positive outcome. As soon as you frame a problem as a negative, how to avoid this, how to do away with that, it closes people's thinking down. They become defensive and cautious. If you open it up to achieving something positive, then we become more creative and generate more and better ideas. Once you've stated the problem and clarified anything that needs clarifying, give everybody 5 minutes of silent thinking to jot down onto sticky notes as many ideas as they can think of for how to achieve the outcome that you set out. And then do a round robin around the room, allowing people to come up and stick their sticky notes onto a board and explain the ideas briefly that they've had. Once you've done that, get the group up to the board and physically rearranging the sticky notes to cluster ideas that go together and to stick the same idea on top of each other to get a clear idea of the pattern of different ideas you've got. Then another round of 5 minutes of silent making notes, but this time people are adding new ideas that are stimulated by what they've seen on the board, or follow-up ideas that they can add to the board. And yet again, we do a round robin, where people add their sticky notes to the board in the clusters that are already there, or possibly even starting their own new cluster and explaining to the group the core of the new idea that they're adding. You might want to do another repetition, but probably not. Once you've done as many repetitions as you choose, and really and truly that one repetition is probably going to be enough. Once you've done that, then go around the room, maybe in a different order this time, getting people's responses to what they see on the board. At this point, you don't want them to be evaluating or selecting the best idea, but get them to comment on the structure they observe and the patterns that are emerging. Next, select the first cluster for discussion and work through that cluster. First, ask anybody to contribute facts, data, evidence, hard knowledge and information that pertains to that cluster of ideas. Then encourage the group to analyse that evidence and to build on those ideas, perhaps even adding additional sticky notes. Then ask the group to contribute any concerns they have about those ideas, any risks they can see inherent in them. Discuss those carefully, make sure everybody understands those risks and that every possible shortcoming that the group can think of is out in the open. Next, get the group to address those concerns, to take those concerns one at a time and to come up with ideas that could mitigate the risks. And finally, ask the group to evaluate the idea in the round. What do they like about it? What do they not like about it? How likely do they think it is to be a successful solution to the problem or a contributor to a final solution of the problem? Then move on to the next cluster of ideas and the next cluster of ideas so that you've talked about each cluster. Only now do we start to compare the ideas, facilitate a conversation about the relative merits of the different ideas, which ideas may work well together, which ideas are mutually exclusive, which ideas are the weakest ones, which ideas are the strongest ones. And only after that conversation do you want to select the ideas that you're going to take forward and to define the route forward from the group. And once the group has started to define the route forward, go back to thinking about risks and problems and concerns and make sure you're happy that you understand the level of risk and that that level of risk is acceptable or that you have mitigations in place. And finally, allocate responsibilities. Go around the room, look for volunteers or allocate people to take on specific actions that flow from the chosen solution. The fourth and final type of meeting we'll talk about is a decision-making meeting, one where you need a group to work together to arrive at a decision. A lot of this will sound a little familiar from the previous type of meeting, but start off by stating the decision that you need to make and the options that you're going to be evaluating. Then get clear, factual, evidence-based statements about each of the options. What do we know about them? What's the data? What is the evidence? What are the facts behind each option? Ask the group if they need any factual clarification, and then for each option, work through. First, get observations and responses to those options. And then, once you've got those kind of observations about that option, take a straw poll. How do people respond to it? Do they like the option? Do they not like the option? Do they have concerns? Do they have reasons to favour that option? Now allow people to advocate either for the option or against it and get all of that documented. And then you can move on to the next option. Once you've considered all of the options individually, now bring them together and take a straw poll as to which options people like, which options people don't like. You should be able to exclude some options because nobody likes them. You may be able to identify the options which have the greatest level of support. Clearly, if there's one person who is very different in their view to everyone else, you need to hear from that person before moving forward. Make sure they get a chance to put their reasons to the group and to have that properly assessed and evaluated. Then, if you need to, have a discussion about the leading contenders, the options that people do favour and are likely to be the ones that make it to the final choice. Again, start with observations and then move on to advocacy. Only when all that is done do you move to your decision-making process, which may be a vote, it may be a consensus discussion, or it may be a decision from key decision makers. Always document the basis of the decision, the mechanism of the decision, and if there are any dissenting voices, document their dissent and their reasons. So these have been 4 very particular types of meeting that you may choose to facilitate. If you do have to facilitate any of these meetings, then these guidelines should allow you to structure your meeting effectively. Please do give us a thumbs up if you like this video. There's loads more great management courses content to come, so please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of that content. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video, and in the meantime, keep learning.